The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Wednesday.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Already?
And the beginning of the third day of the Republican National Convention.
Yes.
And
I have to say, last night's speech by Donald Trump Jr. Truly took away the House. And already
he plagiarized it. He plagiarized it.
And already this morning they're saying they plagiarized it. But he did something that no politician has ever done before. He told the truth. And this kid's not a politician. This gentleman's not a politician.
He will be.
I'll tell you, he should be running for office because he said it very clearly. And I'm sure that Rebecca Cusick was turning over and ready to scream and bash her head against the wall or something because he said it very clearly. The school systems are failing. The public school systems are failing. They're overburdened. They're keeping their administrators in jobs. That's all this is. And we look at our own school department budget. We have people that do nothing. Thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And nothing is being done. Nothing.
Well, he hit some very great points that apply, across the board. Number one, he did make the point about our school system failing, and it is, because if we look worldwide and we look at school systems like the Japanese school systems, the Chinese school systems, and the way they educate their children, with the emphasis on education, obviously, not on administrative jobs, and they've created a tremendous bureaucracy here, and it's basically an employment agency. And this is the reason that charter schools are have better achievement levels. And you see people I was speaking to a school teacher from Somerset, and they talked about exchange students and how the Chinese exchange students came here and they had to go home because they were bored out of their skull and they weren't learning anything. And the things they were teaching in high school, they said they learned in the 4th grade. And then we wonder why we rank so poorly in mathematics and science throughout the world. But he also said a lot of other things that I thought were very, very refreshing, because you can tell he's not a politician. Especially at election time, they try to sit on the fence so much the picket comes out of their ear. But he talked about schools and protecting administrators and tenured teachers and who were not doing anything. But he also spoke about the aristocrats, the aristocrat class, the billionaires who who basically make their own rules. Something that we've been talking about a long time on this show, CJ. We talked about the monarchy and how this country really isn't a democracy or a republic. It's a constitutional monarchy because rich people basically run this country, and their shills are the Congress, because they buy and pay for all the congressmen. He also talked about, he gave deference to the working man. He said, he said that they were brought up and they worked with people who had, and I believe this is fairly accurate. I'm going to say it's a paraphrase. I don't want to be accused of plagiarizing, but I believe he said that he learned from people who had a doctorate in common sense, not from people who were educated at prestigious schools, and that I think is one of the major problems we have today in our society. We have a big disparity between overeducated and undereducated, but the reality is what we need in this country is simple common sense. He said a lot of things that made simple common sense. This is why it was far from a political speech. He talked about gun control, and he said, how do you expect to control guns with legislation? criminals don't abide by laws. Terrorists don't abide by laws. By their definition, and as he said, and it's true, the cities with the strictest gun control normally have the highest gun violence. If you look at Chicago, one of the strictest in the country, if not the strictest now. New York City, yep. Massachusetts. We see these, you go out to these other states where the people can access, private citizens, law-abiding citizens can access guns. Actually, the gun crime is lower. But, whatever your position is, I mean, it's a reality. As we said, the truth, the fact is that, look, yeah, granted, once in a while you're going to get somebody that goes off the deep end and if they got a gun. But if they don't have a gun, they'll probably use a hatchet like the guy did in Germany or something else. But the average law-abiding citizen is not the one that's going to use the gun for terrorist acts. And you say, well, if we remove all guns, well, a terrorist won't break into people's houses and steal the guns. Well, no. What they'll do is buy them on the black market and make a gun runner rich. But it was refreshing. It was refreshing to see somebody who said, my father was a businessman, but he appreciated the hard work of the working man. He had people in his company that worked their way up, and they could drive a bulldozer and a car, and so they learned to value people's contribution, be it at a CEO or at its lowest level, because as I've said a long time ago, my father told me a long time ago, you respect any man that puts in an honest day's work for an honest day's wage, regardless of what he's doing, whether it's washing dishes or if he's the CEO of a major corporation. We need to respect working people again in this country. We need to remember that the working people built this country. They built the railroads. They built the buildings. Now, it's refreshing in a political convention to see somebody acknowledge that rather than pander to groups. And that's what they do. Most political people pander to voting blocks. But it was nice to see him get up there and say those words. They were really not political. As a matter of fact, it surprised the hell out of me when he talked about billionaires, because his father's one. So, but I mean, he said that they can't have special consideration. They're not aristocrats, and working people can't be ignored. And it was refreshing. I'll tell you, the speech, and I know that. I guess that's the Democratic spin now. They're going to accuse everybody of plagiarizing now if you say anything. But realistically, what can we say on anything that fundamentally, in some form or another, hasn't been said before? So, I mean, I think they're making much to do about nothing, because the fact is that let's listen to what the point they're trying to make. And, okay, this is in an English class. You don't need a footnote, but plagiarizing still doesn't take away the fact that what they're trying to say. And as I said, it was refreshing to see somebody acknowledge, as we were trying to say on this show for so long, looking at the problems we have. He didn't say, America's school system's the greatest in the world. We got the greatest school systems in the world, because we don't. Far from it. I mean, and then, you see it every day. The people who begin to look at what's wrong with their communities, their cities, their states, their countries, are the people that move forward. The other day on Channel 10, they showed Governor Gina Raimondo working on an apprenticeship program to train people to get jobs at Electric Boat. Gee, I think we talked about that about 2 or 3 years ago.
We talk about it regularly.
Yeah, they've had that program in Germany for decades. And I think we suggested that for our Fall River Office of Economic Disaster. Why doesn't somebody put money into partnerships with places like Electric Boat to train people to weld, to train people for businesses, and then get people who want to work the skills that will get them a job, not not say they're totally unqualified. They have to be trained from ground zero. Work on apprenticeship programs. But no. What do we want to do? We want to rebrand the city and bring tourists here. It's, the whole thing's absurd. But I'll tell you what. I mean, I'll be watching next week for the Democrat spin. And as an independent, I watch both. But I'll tell you, it was refreshing to see someone speak like a person that's looking at things logically.
And remember, he can drive a D10 Caterpillar.
That's right.
But this is the problem we have. And I posted the results of the delegate votes immediately as Paul Ryan was announcing them. I was putting them into the system. And I don't know if it was a joke. I don't know if it wasn't a joke, but somebody turned around and said, "Oh, are you now plagiarizing the information, or was that sent to you by the Republican National Committee?" Hey, guess what? It was transcribed verbatim. Take it or leave it. But we have to understand, you and I have been saying the same thing over and over again for how many years, Chip? And it was all, even the Republicans told us we were being negative. But now, their new mantra is, make America safe again, make America great again. That message is coming from the new mantra, and it's all perfectly fine. And it's wonderful, and it's the way the world should be. So you know what? Always remember, people, as much as you may think we're negative, in 2 or 3 years, somebody else is going to be saying, those guys were right. But it's amazing. For those of you who are ringing my phone off the hook, yes, I know that the live broadcast kind of started a little late. We are sorry. We are having technical difficulties within the studio. We've gotten some of them rectified. We are always live online on YouTube on time. So
well, we're having a problem, but hey, it's live TV.
Yes.
But the thing is, it's as I said, you move something forward by looking at what you're doing wrong and correcting it. And this is one of the problems with America. And look, I think America is the greatest country on the planet. But does that mean that we do everything better than everybody else? That's what a lot of Americans, that's the myth they try to portray. And the reality is, we don't. We don't. And in those areas, why don't we look at, let's not reinvent the wheel. Like you said, we were what, 40... I don't know, we were 47th in infant mortality or something like that.
43rd.
It was ridiculous.
Right.
A country that spends more money than any other country on the planet in healthcare and has some of the best hospitals available. How can we be 43rd in infant mortality? There's a problem. You can't. It's like Gina Raimondo's turned around and said, well, we can't get people jobs because they don't have any skills. Well, why don't we enter into something that Germany's been doing, as I said, for decades?
Actually, Germany's been doing that since after World War II.
Yeah. Well, the German school system is, it's incredible.
It's amazing, right.
It's amazing because the Germans don't, it's like they test you. If you've got the brains to go to college, you go to college. And if you don't go to college, they'll teach you a trade.
That's right.
And then you're moved into the workforce. And actually, the same teacher I was talking to was telling me they had some German exchange students, and I guess the American students were like, "Oh well, that's terrible. You can't go to college unless you can make it through." And the German student said, "Well, why should you go to college if you're not capable of doing college level work and you're not going to get a degree that's going to do you any benefit? Isn't it better to learn a trade and work and make money?" And they didn't have an answer for that.
No.
It's like, well, freedom's more important than results. Well, there comes a point in time, especially when it comes to educating, especially when it's trying to maintain your economy. The reason the German economy is still so good is you need people to build Mercedes-Benz. You need people to build aircraft. You need people. But they take these people and they guide their young people into places where they can become productive. They don't just throw them out there and say, look, everybody can go to college, whether you can or not. So go to college and major in basket weaving, and when you get out, you can get a job at McDonald's. Why go to college? If you went to a trade school, has anybody ever checked what a plumber makes? or an electrician?
Oh, yes. I pay the bills.
Call a plumber and see. He'll make more than some of the college professors
Oh, there's
here.
no question about it.
But see, these countries, they've got something that works. Heaven forbid that anybody in this country would turn around and say, oh, we can't do that because, Japan did it first or China did it first. Well, they copied America in a lot of things. Why can't we copy things that work? And, it's so fundamental and so simple and so logical. You have to question, why haven't we done it? Why? Because politicians are only concerned with one thing: taking care of their friends, taking care of themselves, and they don't give two craps, like I said.
And
what do they care about fixing health care? They got world-class health care for life. What do they care about your pension system? They've got a pension for life, and they'll never run out of money because they print their own. And that's the problem. The problem is the only time anybody pays attention to the fact that we have virtually no middle class anymore is when it's an election time.
The thing is, Chip, and this is very clear, whether you're Democrat or Republican, watch these conventions. Watch them. Why? Because you'll learn some things about the different states that are actually out there and what they're offering to their state and what's happening. When I ever heard that there was a community that actually, a state that has no state tax, number one employer in the country, number one in job production, lowest unemployment rate. And of course, because it was the Republican convention, they said, with a 2/3 Republican House, 2/3 Republican Senate, and a governor that's Republican. And no Republican has held an office since 1992. What are we doing wrong in Massachusetts? Now, I'm not saying vote for Republican. I'm not saying vote Democrat. But obviously, these are people that got together and said, this is what we have to do. And they did it. And here's the kicker. When I did a little more research, guess what they don't have in that state?
Let me see. TIFs.
Hey, there you go. No TIFs.
Wild guess.
Wild guess,
Wild
okay?
guess.
So obviously, TIFs don't work. And this was even part of the convention. They talked about that. We've talked about it. And they brought up Bernie Sanders. I was stunned that, Bernie Sanders has said it. You cannot tax yourself out of financial problems.
And Winston, well, he plagiarized that.
Yeah,
by
that
the
was
way.
plagiarized. That's what
He plagiarized that. Milton Friedman said that, and so did Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
But the fact is that, look, what have we been saying on this show for how many? And what have we said in front of our city council? Our city council that basically approves every single fee, every single increase,
and every single
and
tip.
every tax rate, every tax increase, and they maintain a lower business tax because they still haven't figured out one thing. What we've said, and what obviously Tennessee proves, when people are not taxed to death, they have more money to spend. Therefore, they'll have a better economy. Milton Friedman said taxes are regressive. They're the worst thing for an economy. If he had his way, he'd have no taxes.
Right.
And here's a Nobel Prize winning economist. We have heard this. And what happened? Massachusetts is now, stick it to the working man again. No tax holiday this year. Now, if tax holidays didn't work, why would they have them? Everybody waits to spend their money when there's no taxes.
That's right.
So what do these cities and towns that are in economic problems do? They continue to tax their way out of debt, and this is the reason that ultimately they end up totally destroyed economically or in receivership. Why do we have only 37% of the people in the city of Fall River that own property now? Because everybody else bailed out. Because nobody wants to live here.
Right.
Or nobody wants to pay these fees and taxes to live in this place with crime and all the other issues. It's as I said, let's get back to the theme last night of Donald Trump Jr. It's logical. It makes sense. But why don't our politicians and political leaders understand this? When is somebody going to stand up on the council floor when the next increase or pay raise or new job comes up and says, enough. Let's reorganize this city. Let's get rid of all the chiefs, hire some Indians, and let's make Fall River's budget a bare bones budget with only enough people to provide adequate services to the taxpayer. Not multiple jobs for politicians. When is somebody going to say that? And I guess we're going to have to continue to replace them on the 6th floor and in the chamber until we get enough people in those seats that are going to finally demand, not request, demand that we spend our money wisely. I have to spend my money wisely. CJ has to spend his money wisely. You all out there have to spend your money wisely. You can't say, well, crap, I want to go on vacation for 2 months to Vegas, gamble my entire savings away, and come back and say, well, shit, I got to pay my bills, so what I'm going to do is tax all my neighborhood.
That's right.
And take all the money. I'll get all, that way I don't have to worry about how much I spend. I can do it again in another 2 months. I can go back to Vegas because I have no accountability. There are no consequences. And there are no consequences in this city. It's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. I mean, the mayor of this city increased his budget by 30% and more now, and now he's trying to put in all these jobs. Not one new police officer, not one new firefighter. Way too many administrators, way too many chiefs, not enough Indians, taxpayers getting killed. People who own property want to get rid of the property. People want to move out of the city because this city has a total disregard for its working people.
You know, I just saw a listing for a triple-decker, okay? And 10 years ago, that same property was selling for almost $325,000. Okay, you know how much it's selling for right now? $189,000.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to try to buy it for $150,000 or $160,000. And I'm sure that the person who owns it, if they bought it 10 years ago, is losing their shirt on it. This is how bad it is in Fall River, because you, the city council, you, the mayor, you, the redevelopment authority, the Fall River Office of Economic Destruction, all you know how to do is spend. Spend, 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 and give your friends jobs. When are you going to stop that? When are you going to realize that there is no more money? There is no more cash. It's gone. The people of Fall River are broke. They're all bankrupt. They can't get those $120,000 a year jobs that Jason likes to give away to his friends, or $52,000 a year jobs to be the press secretary. But that's what you're doing. And you, the city council, are allowing it to happen. You, Pam LeBeau, who can't find anything wrong with Jazel's actions. You, Joe Camaro, who's grinding an axe right now, and you can't represent the people like you used to do. You, Steve Camara, that is only there representing your interests and the interests of the unions. Okay? You need to step off the plate. You, Steve Long, you do the same thing. You represent Steve Long. You don't represent the people. You don't represent the voters. You don't represent the taxpayer. Why? Because the Longs have always been attached to the city. And they always make sure they line their pockets by doing it. This is what Fall River has become. Because you, the voter, has elected a bunch of people who don't care about you. You got their vote. They got your vote for a chicken sandwich or a chow mein sandwich or something along that line. And as Mark Dion said in his column, again and again and again, they make the same promises all the time, and you buy them. Because you want to live in a world with rose-colored glasses. Get your head out of your ass. Wake up. It's time to realize you are not represented anymore by the people in City Hall or by the people at the State House.
Well, we have a few councilors now who are picking some numbers apart and looking. They're trying, but you know the fact is, let's look at what we have here. And as you said, look at this city. And Mark Monroe, again and again and again, these promises have been made. And what do? Let's have a tourism director. Let's rebrand. It's all horse shit.
Yeah.
I hate to tell you, but it's all horse shit. Because the fact is, you know, we had at one time 60 or 70% of the people who own property. Now we're down to 37. And those people are only here because most of them are being held hostage. They can't go anywhere else. They can't get enough for their house. They're on fixed incomes. They can't afford a new mortgage. And they're stuck here. But, you know, you want to bring people into Fall River, working people? Fall River at one time was a blue-collar town, people who worked for a living. So instead of pissing all this money down a hole like you always do, giving your friends jobs and having studies, why don't we learn from people around us? Why don't we look at people who are successful? Why don't we look at Germany? Why don't we look at what Gina Raimondo's doing? You think maybe some people would consider moving to Fall River? If we were number one in the state in creating a brand new apprenticeship program to train people and mainstream them into jobs with the companies that you have the apprenticeship programs with, if you told people that weren't college educated and were going to become professionals, that you could put them in a program, and that we were working with companies to prepare them for real life work with real life work experience, and they would be guaranteed a job if they completed these programs. Maybe if you gave a residential taxpayer some kind of TIF, if they bought a house here and came here to avail themselves of something.
You mean like Cambridge does?
And then, yeah, like Cambridge does. Yeah, you're right. But I mean, like I said, all these things we're not reinventing the wheel here. These things have been done, and they've been done successfully. But you know what gets done, and done very successfully in Fall River? The politicians in Fall River have piled the bullshit up so much that everybody believes the lies. They believe that we can't get better, or the only way we can get better is get tourism or rebrand. Like I said, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. Let's do something that works. Let's get an incentive to bring people, not tourists, into the city of Fall River. People who will avail themselves of jobs, who will get jobs and spend money. Let's keep taxes low to encourage people to move to this city. No, that's too damn logical. You're too busy making your own deals. Oh, take care of my park. Get a teacher for my kid's school. Get my cousin a job. Get my uncle a job. And what do the people do? Throw up their hands. Oh, there's nothing we can do. There's plenty we can do. Terrible. There's plenty we can do. And like I said, what we've done already, we booted one mayor, we booted another mayor after a year, we booted a lot of the council. Well, guess what? In the next election, it looks like it's time to do it again, because it's not working. It's the same old, same old. I want to see somebody walk into that 6th floor and change the way this city does business. I want to see councilors, the majority of councilors, because there are some that are beginning to try. They don't constitute the majority. You want to get in there and play let's make a deal with the mayor? You're a one-termer. When that becomes a reality in the city of Fall River will begin to move forward. And until then, it's going to be the same old, and we're going to be, the only thing we're going to go up on is from the 5th worst city in the country to maybe the 1st or 2nd worst city in the country to live in. Not be a tourist, by the way.
Yeah, it's a shame. But you know, it's nutty. We don't have enough time. I mean, we got like 20 seconds left before the credits start to roll. But I'll tell you, you know, we have fought this tooth and nail for a long time, and until the voters wake up, it's not going to change in Fall River. So please watch these conventions, Republican or Democrat, and find out what other states are doing. Because guess what? It'll be good for you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on Friday. Stay angry, people.
And remember, everybody's plagiarizing everything.